Sisu is a Finnish concept describing a stoic determination, a tenacity of purpose, grit, bravery, resilience, and haughtiness. Oh, and it's also a movie about a gold prospector striking it rich, trying to go to the bank, and he runs into a bunch of Nazis fleeing war-torn Finland, and let me tell you folks, hilarity ensues. I find all this kind of funny, because we're in an age where entertainment has been reduced to being brain-dead woke corporate content designed by committee for everyone, but pleases no one. And Sisu is basically the opposite of all those things I just listed. This movie knows exactly what it is. It's a no-holds-barred, over-the-top action film filled to the brim with toxic masculinity and Nazi murder. And who would have thought that a movie about a guy just trying to get to the bank would be such a great fucking movie? Sisu is written and directed by, I'm gonna have problems saying these names, Jalmari Helander, and stars Jorma Tommila, who plays Tommy Korpi, who is a former Finnish commando turned gold prospector. So our lead character lives out in the remote wilderness of Lapland, Finland, searching for the most obvious thing, because I've already said it a couple times, gold, because he's a prospector, which ultimately he does. He starts off by finding a little speck of gold and decides to dig a big hole and finds a huge vein of gold. After going and mining the vein to completion, he begins his long journey back to town so he can go to the bank and exchange his gold for cash. But there's a problem. The Nazis. Because this movie takes place in 1944, which is beginning to be the tail end of World War II, the Nazis are retreating and they're practicing a scorched earth tactic as they're leaving. And as our protagonist is making his way back to town, he runs into a platoon of Nazi soldiers led by a ruthless SS officer named Bruno Helford, who are destroying settlements as they make the retreat out of Finland. Along the way, they go and take several women captive for reasons. I'm not really sure if this is something the Nazis actually did or if it's because of some bullshit plot point. But, you know, whatever. For now, the Nazis go and let a Tommy pass, but he's accosted further down the road by another group of soldiers whose truck is broken down. Realizing that the old man has gold, the Nazis try and kill him and take it, which was a big mistake for them, obviously. And that's when the Nazi killing begins. And let me tell you folks, this movie makes killing Nazis fun again. And a lot of fun was had by all. Now, I don't want to go too much further into the plot, mainly because I don't want to spoil anything for you. Not that there's really much to spoil. For the most part, the trailer did a pretty decent job of that. But it's a fun movie, and I really encourage people to go and check it out. It's actually worth your money. Surprise, surprise. I caught it during a matinee. I only paid $5. If you like 80s style action films and Quentin Tarantino movies, you're probably going to like this one because it really is kind of a mashup between the two. It kind of reminds me of Inglourious Basterds, but without all the alternate history. Now, one of my main issues with modern storytelling is the poorly implemented execution of grandiose ideas. Sometimes a simple story is just what the audience ordered. And that's basically what this movie is. Now, one of the things I often talk about on this channel is I describe the plot as a story of a man climbing up a tree, people showing up throwing rocks at him, and then he climbs down forever changed. The idea behind it is about the journey, not so much the destination, and the events that happen in between that further facilitate that story. In this instance, the man in the tree is a Tommy. He finds some gold and he wants to go to the bank. That's him climbing up the tree. And the people that show up to throw rocks at him are the Nazis, because they are the obstacle between him and his end goal, which is getting to the bank. Now again, this is a very simple thing. This is something that all movies should do. You understand the motivations of all the parties. I've already talked about Tommy's motivations. He wants to get the gold to the bank. There I go repeating myself again. The Nazis, on the other hand, they want the gold so they can go flee the country. Helldorf knows that if he goes back to Germany and surrenders, he's a dead man. So he wants the gold so he can go and escape to Norway. And with the motivation of all parties involved, we know what the conflict is going to be. The fight for control of the gold. And everything that happens in between is there to service and advance the plot. None of the scenes feel like they've just been strung together, much like what we've been seeing with modern Marvel movies. Ant-Man 3 is a perfectly good example of this, where the plot of the movie was basically, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and the movie's over. Nice, simple, concise, fun. Now, I actually have very few complaints about this movie. This is more kind of gripes than anything else. The first one is that the Nazis kind of come off as being a bit cartoonishly villain at times, but that's fine. It makes sense for the film. My other complaint is that it is a bit over the top at times. really over the top. There's plenty of times where the main protagonist should have died. Well, like I said at the very beginning, Sisu. That is not just the title of the movie, it's also the theme of the movie. Determination and perseverance. The main protagonist remains alive because he refuses to die. And within the context of that, it makes a lot of sense, despite my incessant complaining. Overall, I think this is a solid movie. I give it an 8 out of 10. It's definitely a movie that I would go back and see in the theater, which is a rarity for me. Normally when I go and see a movie, I'm pretty much done. I mean, I'll go watch it on DVD or Blu-ray or something like that, or if it's on HBO Max, but very rarely do I go and return back to the theater. And this is definitely one of those movies I would like to see again. Well, if you enjoyed this review, I suggest you go and check out my Ant-Man review, which is not so much a review as much as an ass-kicking. Go on now, click the thing.